Hi there, and welcome to a special edition of the MiamiHal Real Estate Show. It's a special edition because Thursday, the studios here are dark. So we're here on a Monday, and I've got a special guest, right? So every single week, yes,
looking
Gene,
for the special guest.
It's you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Every single week, I put somebody in this seat that can teach us about real estate, what's going on in our community. And this week, I have none other than the founding mayor of Palmetto Bay. This is Eugene Flinn. I said Eugene because that's how you have it printed, but I call you Gene.
Oh, please call me Gene. And, anybody calls me, it's Gene.
All right.
That's how I tell if I want to take the call or not. If I hear Eugene, I'm a little worried.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second.
Or Mr. Flynn. Now, that was my late father. So
okay.
It's Gene.
Well, there's no phone calls today, but you're looking at us through a social media platform, and there's an empty box there. So please, during the show, if you have questions, we'd be happy to try to take a look at those. And if we can, we'll answer them on air for the next couple of minutes.
Which has been something I always like to do, answer questions in the public. Let's discuss things out and in the open.
All right. I introduced you as the founding mayor of Palmetto Bay. And I think that's what the show is really about. Palmetto Bay was just part of Miami at one point, and you and several other people took it upon yourselves to get us to a point where we could call Palmetto Bay Palmetto Bay. So what year was that? And maybe you could give us a little rewind in history, going back to the initial idea to the point that we got to Palmetto Bay being incorporated.
That is interesting because there are a lot of people out there that might not have even been born that are out there concerned, that are now voting age. I mean, Palmetto Bay really got its start back in 1996, but it wasn't until 2002 that we finally got the right to vote.
Right.
And it was a labor of love. It was teamwork in the best sense. We all really developed out of necessity and out of love for our community that we put together a steering committee to incorporate the village of Palmetto Bay. And it really rose out of the what happened in Andrew. You saw a lot of municipalized areas back then. Anybody who wants to go back will remember their manager Muxo, I think his name was, in Homestead, bringing in money to help repair Homestead that was devastated with Hurricane Andrew. And meanwhile, down in our area by the Coral Reef Park, where you had the eye wall move through, I didn't see any resources come through until basically after my phone and electric services turned back on.
And back then, we were talking about landline phone service, right?
Well, some of that landline actually lasts better than some of the cell phone towers, although they've really improved and really hardened things up since then. But we learned a lot about teamwork, working together. It was a very long time to get to incorporation with annexations, working through the long period of moratorium that we had. And again, don't say just me, and I know you didn't mean it that way, but as far as incorporation, it really was a group effort.
Yeah, no, I had said you and others.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that this was really born out of the post-Andrew or just after post-Andrew effects, and the fact that Palmetto Bay wanted to have more resources and more direct control over how that recovery happened. Is that correct?
Well, we felt we were a community, and we defined those areas that we felt there was a community. And even today, I mean, the Palmetto Bay community is really gelled. We've become a very good place to live, work, play. We've got signature parks. We've got I was fortunate to be a part of putting these things together. And these are things we want to jealously guard and continue to move forward in a positive manner.
So let's talk about the charter, because that's what made Palmetto Bay into its own village. What were the main points of the charter? And obviously the charter stands for itself today, but were there ideas that were behind those charter points that we should highlight today?
A lot of it was, I believe the charter really was focused on transparency and accountability. I believe that the charter was originally a framework, but we have continued through citizens initiatives and through our various charter committees to improve the charter and to be, you don't want to document that's just stagnant. It's a living document, and you want to continue to update it. Just recently, we had a few missed opportunities with the current mayor and council in that there were two items that residents wanted to move forward. One was a requirement that any tax increase go forward with a four votes, a supermajority. And for the life of me, I don't understand why that wasn't put forward, because in Palmetto Bay, under my years, we always talked about making sure people's voices were heard. And there's no more American way to make your voice heard than at the ballot box.
Yeah.
And this is not any way to even stop taxes. Too often you get coward politicians that hide behind, well, the 3 votes are there, so I'm going to take a vote of convenience and vote to the contrary on this. They're going to vote against the budget, but they're going to take credit for the things that are in the budget. But they want to tell the people that weren't in favor of those tax increases, well, I voted against it. A 4-1 requires that you work some serious consensus. And you don't have, if you need those taxes, responsible politicians will vote in a responsible way, or that's your hope. It stops the game playing. And so when you talk about having a supermajority, you're not stopping the ability to increase taxes. You're just making sure that everybody is participating, and you don't have coward politicians leaving those with the leadership out to dry. So that really should have gone forward. And I'm a big proponent of that because, as you know, I have always been a strong believer in government light, that we are a government to provide municipal services and work with our community assets, but we're not there to just spend money in ways that wasn't envisioned. That gets back kind of like to the charter.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
we really want to have our municipal taxes go and serve municipal purposes. We didn't create municipal taxes to feed politicians, to feed their supporters, to just throw parties. I mean, charter requires a state of the village, and that's supposed to be, yes, it's a celebratory time, but it's a time to look at your past accomplishments and, more important, lay out your vision for the future.
And you speak really from experience, because how many terms have you served for Palmetto Bay?
Not enough.
Not enough. Okay.
Because like I said, there's always, Palmetto Bay is, no government is ever finished. You don't rest on your laurels. You don't get up there at 30,000 feet and just back off on the power, and coast. You want to keep moving forward in a positive manner.
Right.
You have new challenges, new opportunities. And, and I see some of those, and sitting on the sidelines, I tell you, one of the best things for a politician, a public service servant, is to sit back and watch as a fellow resident. And I've watched that for the last 4 years. Yes. Yeah. And just like when I watched from 2010 to 2014, people talk to you differently. People involve you differently. People respect that you continue to involve them in your consideration.
So if I have my math correct, out of the 20 years Palmetto Bay has been Palmetto Bay, 8 of those years you were not the mayor.
Right.
And so you've had the opportunity, as you put it, to see a different perspective, for people to talk to you differently, for people to give you ideas, and for you to ruminate on what the next steps are for Palmetto
Absolutely.
Bay.
You're talking to your fellow residents. You're not talking to consultants. You're not talking to staff. You're talking to real life, what's really happening, what are your frustrations, and that's what got me back into the campaign, is people saying, Gene, those, when you look back, those were our 12 best years. And I'm like, well, thank you. Thank you. You're so, what, are you trying to sell me something? No, but seriously, it's a lot of fun.
You said you have 4 years where you're not in office and you're able to kind of watch things from afar and see things differently. Was there a seminal question or a seminal moment with somebody where you said, my God, this is what the future should be, and nobody's doing that, so maybe I should be back in there, throwing my hat in the ring and trying to be mayor again?
Well, again, just like in 2010, when I left the council, I left it fully stocked. All the budgets were great. We've never had a busted budget under me. We've always had very clean, perfect audits, issue-less audits, money where it's supposed to be. We did move around some things in the 2014 2018 years, in kind of subdividing the reserves in terms of creating to try to use the reserves. You don't want to just save money. We are not a retirement system, okay? Government, we've had people come to the microphone and say, if you're not going to spend it to provide services, then give it back to the people, because it is their money.
Right.
It really is. It's one of the things I did as mayor for each of my 3 terms. When I first got elected, I sat down and talked to some mentors about this. And there's several great pieces of advice I've always lived my political career by, but one of them was every year I had a frame in my office where I could see my tax bill. And it was just to always remind me, I am not, just mayor. I am higher than that. I am a Palmetto Bay taxpayer. And I want, I'm going to vote on people's taxes as if they're working with me to make the decision. It's not a vacuum. It's a collaboration.
Makes sense. Now, I have had the pleasure of knowing you for many years, and I consider you a friend. I call you Gene. Some people call you Eugene. Some people call you Flynn. And before the show started, you said, depending on how somebody first talks to you, you have a sense of where the conversation is going. So tell me about people that call you Flynn.
That's a term of endearment. I have a generation of people, it's also whether you're a sports figure or whatever, they just call you Flynn. I mean, other government officials, I picked up one of them who sits on the TPO, will probably be a next county commissioner, was always telling me, Flynn this, and I'm always like, well, calling him by his last name. It's just kind of fun, and it kind of gave a signal as to what your relationship is. Eugene is usually somebody who is either looking to be corrected or wants to hear that, please call me Gene.
Okay.
Mr. Flynn, hey, that's my late father.
All right.
But
what about people that call you Gene?
People call me Gene, or people that call me often, and people that, I feel good when people call me Gene because I know they're familiar with me, they're comfortable with me. The only time I like formalities is on the dais during village business, because again, you want to make sure that there is a level of formality to it. You wouldn't call a judge, Flynn, even though I've been called Flynn by some judges. And usually it's like, sometimes that's good, not all the time. But
as long as your middle name is never used, then your
well,
mom's
that's the
after
thing.
you.
When my late mother, bless her, I lost her earlier this year, but she had 90 and a half very good years. Wow. And she called me by my initials, and when those initials came out, I knew
you were in trouble.
I better pay attention and see where I can make this right, or
So, my job every week is to tell people about what's going on in real estate and what's good. So let's talk about the good in Palmetto Bay. Why do people say, if you're looking at the suburbs of Miami, the best place for the money to live is Palmetto Bay? Why would they say such a thing?
Because right out of the box, I believe we kept the promise of an incorporation. Now, remember, another thing I always carry with me is when we went to, we were not a quick incorporation. We had the moratorium years where we were held up 7 years, and that's when they came up with the mitigation and everything. They charged us for the privilege of becoming a city, of achieving our goals for our residents, which also taught us to be frugal, to make sure we are very jealously guard the money. But going with that, right out of the box, we recognized the important issues, which were, and I formulated the piece back then: police, public works, public participation, something we really need to move forward on, planning, something we've really moved forward on. And I think we've done some very good plans on things. But parks was a big issue, parks and police. And we actually, even though we were 18 months behind Miami Lakes, we were the first to get our parks. And we've done some wonderful things with the parks. And that's something I'm looking forward that we need to move forward on the parks. We're not happy with the parks, and it's not that you shouldn't be happy, but there's always ways to make things better. You always need to reevaluate things. You always need to make sure that you're reaching that level of service that people want. And that's why you have to continually engage the residents. Do we need to do more in pickleball? I think we do. It's an up and coming sport, and that was something I was working on in 2017. And I want to see pickleball move forward in Palmetto Bay. It's a great sport, and for those that are laughing at it, you haven't tried it. And I've played with some people that I guarantee you, no matter how good a tennis player you think you are, they're going to school
Pickleball
you.
is tough.
They're going to school you. And pickleball is fun. I'd like to see that there. I'd like to see our tennis go. We've got great tennis programs there, both from the village and privately.
Right.
We got to keep that going.
Use of the parks is critical because it's what creates community. If you have a place where people can go and do something and literally bump into each other, then you're going to get stronger and stronger community.
My proudest years were when my kids, before they graduated from the local public high schools and then went off to college and graduated from college, what I really loved was that period of time they'd come in and hit me up for some money so they could go to the cafe, at Parkview Cafe at Coral Reef Park. That's something we need to reinvigorate and maybe make some changes on and move forward on, because where's a more natural place in, let's just call it Mayberry RFD, Palmetto Bay. We are small town. We're a small town oasis in the greater megalopolis of, from Palm Beach all the way down to, Key Largo, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're an oasis. At least that's the way I envision Palmetto Bay, and that's the way I would like to keep Palmetto Bay. We are that little oasis that you can kind of come in and circle around with your friends and neighbors and enjoy small town USA in your parks.
So I lived in Palmetto Bay for many, many years until very recently. I agree with everything that you're saying there.
My goal is to take this the next step forward to where you're going to come home and tell your wife, honey, we're selling and moving back to Palmetto Bay.
I would love to do that. But besides the parks, which is the first thing we spoke about, what would you say is another main factor? And I'm going to lead you on here a little bit. Let's talk about schools and places of worship, because that is also two great places to have community. So tell us about why Palmetto Bay is a shining star in those regards.
I think we've always had great relationships. Well, maybe not some, we've had some litigation with some of our schools, but you know what? When I came back in 2014, we got those resolved and we built some great partnerships. And I think those partnerships are still surviving, but that doesn't mean we can't take them to the next level. The Montessori school out there and their leadership, they always were participating in our Earth Week programs. Palmetto Bay was always ahead of the curve, and we were the first ones to create an entire Earth Week. And in fact, when you think about it, we should always, it shouldn't be just that week. We really do need to move forward and make sure that Palmetto Bay stays a positive place, a healthy place, from working with the South Florida Water Management District on the canals, working with the county on their areas of expertise and with Durham, and that we need to continue to work forward. But our schools, I remember when we first got elected, and again, I don't want to dwell on the past. I want to move forward, but I'd love to sit down again and facilitate something where we can see OCPC. They used to have a great Christmas pageant. And back then, the Prime Baptist Church had a great Easter live show. Talk about spirituality in Palmetto Bay. We're also blessed to have a Shabbat here in Palmetto Bay. Mm-hmm. So I think we serve our residents well on that. I think we cooperate. St. Richard's has been a great partner, from providing a parking lot for our express service that I remember negotiating back in 2017, which continues now today, to, we have that parking lots available for when we have overflow events, things like the farmers market. We've got the parking, we've added to it. Parking is critical, and you never want to see it left feral. You don't want to see anything fenced off, because there's always cars you need to park. You don't want to see them on neighbors' swales. So working with them. So the schools, they've always been partnerships. Remember when we started the Ladybug release, which was something I remember doing the first Ladybug release. And there's nothing more fun than releasing them with the kids at school. I used to look forward to that. I probably look forward to that more than the kids did in regards to doing that. And it's funny too, because with my mom, I went back and we took the things I've learned from the Palmetto Bay Garden Club and everything, and she had a great butterfly garden going that she enjoyed, and her grandchildren worked with her on that. Not just my children, but my sister's children, my brother's children. That was one thing she treasured. What are you going to get grandma for her birthday or Christmas? Well, you know what? She enjoyed the milkweed, the butterfly plants, the interaction with her kids. And that's what we brought back to Palmetto Bay. Families getting together for Earth Week events, movie nights, volunteers like Victor Vincent bringing out. We had the movie Hoot one night. We had the actual owls that starred in the movie. And you know what? They acted like any regular owl. They didn't have any special air about them. You would not have even known they were in a movie to sit there and see those owls.
To this day, I could say that too. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you an interesting thing. You get into an elevator with somebody that doesn't know Palmetto Bay, but is thinking about coming to Palmetto Bay. And you've got about 5 sentences to tell them and convince them to come to Palmetto Bay. Please, right there. There's your camera.
Well, start out elsewhere, because once you come down to Palmetto Bay, you're not going back. You're going to come down and you're going to see the sense of community that we've worked hard to build. And that's why I'm going to continue to nurture that and take it to the next step. In the future, we've had some great tools given to us because of the pandemic. The pandemic's had its problems. The other thing now is one of the things we brought when we had Palmetto Bay, we talked about you don't have to go to downtown County Hall anymore for meetings, or even go to a few meetings that were held at the Palmetto Golf Club over there in the little community room. We'll have our own places to meet. Well, now we can even do better. Now that we're in the 21st century, we got Zoom and other platforms where we've gone from you don't have to go but a couple miles or a couple blocks away. Now you can really participate, or it's my intention that you will be able to participate in some robust town hall meetings just by going to your computer and logging on. You can see things. Transparency is the key. And when you see everything, I've always believed that people support what they help create.
So it's
never been about just me. It's about the community.
Described what you and others set out to do in 2002.
And it saddens me when I see it take a different turn.
That's where we're going now. So
I saw that. So I thought I'd add that segue in.
Very good. So as of today, based on what you see and what you have as input, is Palmetto Bay an A grade student, a B, C, D, or are they failing to meet or exceed the charter?
Well, I'm going to tell you something. Those grades haven't come out yet. And we're going to cram and we're going to work hard so that when they do, they're all A+.
You sidestepped the question. Today,
I know I did.
I said,
today,
what's the grade?
Well, we got to break it down. Taxes bother me, okay? Because I always have believed there's enough money.
Is that a
We've
C
always been
on taxes?
That's a D. That's a D.
It's a D, okay.
Because I'll tell you, one of the promises we always made was that Palmetto Bay could take, when people voted for Palmetto Bay, the idea was we weren't going to become a major city. We weren't going to become a Coral Gables, a full service city where you'd have code enforcement bring. Remember, we had people that were raising dogs, that were, doing some minor things. Of course, things have changed since then. Under DeSantis, they passed a law 2 years ago where you can run a home-based business out of there, and the municipalities cannot encroach upon that right. So long as you meet certain things. I mean, you can run a law business out of your home now today. I don't think people really realize that. Yeah. So when people talk about, we got a couple hundred, occupational licenses coming in. Well, under me, we've had thousands come in the typical businesses, but now people are coming in and they're getting occupational licenses for their home. And that was something they couldn't do 2 years ago without great difficulty. The state law really changed that. But taxes, we promised we would take the unincorporated taxes and keep those within our area. We went out there and we got a lot of grants. Thalata Estate was bought at $3.619 million, I think, but who's counting? We got basically $3.619 for the Florida Communities Trust. Great collaboration there. And that's money we can still continue to do and use. You got to figure out what the money is, what your needs are, and prioritize based upon that. But taxes have gone way up. And
so you want to attack those?
Well, I think people need to understand what are they getting for the new taxes. I mean, people are telling me my taxes are going up. We inherited a franchise fee that we voted on as unincorporated residents, and I believe it was 1992. We voted for 30 years. If the unincorporated millage rate, the franchise fee rate was 3.5% on your bill. Miami-Dade County no longer collects that for unincorporated Miami-Dade. Now, Palmetto Bay voters are very reasonable voters. And if there's a case to be made that we need that money, I am confident. And that's a contrast here. I have confidence in the voters that they will do the right thing. And we voted on 92. Why aren't we voting on it again? But instead, this mayor and council did it that said we were going to drop it or go down to 0.5%. And then people, when they're, we dodged a bullet on that one. Next thing you know, it's a vote, and it's now not only 3.5% for the next 30 years, it's 6%.
Seems like
that's a lot of money the village is bringing in. They're not only bringing in the original 3.5%, but they're bringing in 6%. And that's a big burden on our taxpayers. That's a burden on your tax bill. Some would say it's a sin tax and push you over to solar, but even then you're paying. FP&L just underwent some very large increases in your tax bill. If anybody's noticed an increase in your tax bill, well, that's 6% that Palmetto Bay was getting in actual dollars went up commensurate with that bill. And you know what that does? That makes politicians less likely to fight FP&O rate hikes because they're rewarded. They are an unindicted co-conspirator in that. And it's hard, it's hard to talk when your mouth's full of all that tax revenue.
All right. I have a couple of things that I need to get to, and we're getting tight on time. There was a comment about overdevelopment being that person's number one topic in Palmetto Bay.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because the original vision, and this is one of the things, Flinn approved 6-7-story buildings in the code. That's a half story. Flinn changed the code from under the original county code for that downtown area we inherited at that where that H. Gregg Nissan dealership is, under the county code, you could have gone 28 stories there. I lopped it way down, and we worked together. And how do we do that? Through mixed use. People want amenities, people want restaurants, but you have to create a strong environment there. And there was never, I think John Dubois, his reelection campaign in 2016, talked about you probably really never see under that code any more than 2,500 units go in there. The original county code could have been 17 to 23,000. So all these are complicated numbers, but let's talk about the thing. There was a vision for restaurants. There was a vision for entertainment section. There was a vision. Now what are we getting after the so-called changes in the downtown code after I left? You're getting walk-up apartments with no amenities. That's what's slated there. And by the way, I voted against. I was the only one that voted against that apartment complex that they're still building on 174th Street. That is even worse than I warned the council about. Cunningham voted for it. Everybody else on the council voted for it. Nobody on the current council voted for it because Cody, Tellum, and Mattson were not on the council at the time. I doubt they would vote for it, knowing what it is now. And I just felt that was totally out of character for the neighborhood. You've got a monstrosity going up now on 184th Street that I remember Paul Neidhart and we lost, and I'm saying we lost, the entire village lost on a 2-2 vote that would have had no more than 3 stories going in there, a type of live work, light offices there. Instead, go look at what we have going in there now. It's a different vision, and we got to get back to that.
Language, as I know from George Carlin, I love George Carlin and how he dissects.
Please don't
language.
Ask me to say those 11 words.
No,
okay, thank you.
Not the dirty words on TV. We're not doing that. But what he says is language is critically important. And I remember serving on the Downtown Development Task Force for several years. And the idea was, what do residents want in Palmetto Bay? And the word downtown is a dirty word to a lot of people. They don't, when somebody says downtown, they're thinking skyscrapers and they're thinking crime. And so that is not the vision that anybody had, nor do they have now to put something like that. So maybe the downtown is the wrong word. Could you?
Who was mayor when you get started on that downtown task force?
I think it was you.
No, I think it wasn't me. It was the Downtown Redevelopment Task Force.
Oh, that's true. That's right.
Because remember, we had passed the FT&I, which was a form-based code.
Right. Okay.
It was a form-based code, and we were really working on being a restaurant. And at that time, the biggest issue to bringing those buildings in were a lack of a sewer system.
Okay.
And we had got that finished. And when I came back in, and again, I've heard it put to me as far as claiming credit that I was one of 5 votes. Well, let's look at the 5 votes for that DUV when I came back in 2015. Those votes were actually to lighten a lot of what was done while you were on that DRTF. I voted for it. Cunningham voted for it. You know, those votes are record. Okay.
Yep.
And there were no complaints, everything else. And so, you know, going forward, does it mean that you don't need to tweak things? Well,
You always need to tweak.
you
As
always
said
need
at
to
the
tweak
beginning of the
things. You need
show,
to
it's an
reevaluate. It's a
ongoing effort.
living thing. And one of the things, and I'll tell you this is something that's critical that has to be done if you want to save, if you want to preserve the Palmetto Bay Village Code, whatever you want to call it down there. If you think downtown is wrong, it's easy to change the word.
Village Center.
Yeah, Village Center Code. And then in there, there's entertainment sections and everything. But if you want to get back to it, look at some of the development. We all voted for that downtown station that, again, my opponent proudly went down there and was doing an event at the restaurant there. But then you look at the Shores property, which was supposed to be very similar, that both she and I voted for. But then because of a lot of the rug that was pulled out of there, $72 million entertainment district pulled out of there. The replacement, the number 2, was never negotiated and never brought forward under the current administration. So we're not getting a lot of the promises that people were looking to see that would signal some quality development, some more restaurants, some more development. Wouldn't it be nice to have a bowling alley or a movie theater or something you can come down and see? I mean, you know, entertainment area is not bad. It's good. But getting back to this, going back, the Shores area, it doesn't have the private and public green space now. It's walk-up apartments.
Yes.
There's no amenities. It's walk-up apartments. It's a white flag. It's a surrender and saying, I'm just going to build this, add new residents, add nothing as far as restaurants or any kind of commercial, and it's gone. You know, that's not right. And in a medical building, but you know, when that came in and we voted for it originally, they could have gone a certain number of floors. We knocked them down. Yeah. Under my code, we never maximized everything. And I'll leave that area by just discussing the medical building that went up. Somebody cobbled together 4 quarter-acre lots. It's 0.95 of an acre. It's going to be 72,000 square feet. It's a 5-story medical building. It was built with variances. They didn't go and cut down from the code, which is what we did under the original DUV. They used a variance procedure that was passed in, I think it was April of 2019, a year after I left office, to add to it. They greatly reduced the parking, which has got to be a nightmare for everybody that's living in there and now knows, yeah, they're going to take the bus. They're going to take the I-bus. If you've got a medical appointment at a time certain, you're going to take the I-bus to get to the you know, if you believe that, I got a bridge on 87th Avenue to sell you.
We didn't even go there.
But no, we didn't. But I do want to say it's important in looking forward. We've got to dismantle that variance procedure because that enhances rights. That doesn't take it away. That turns the code into a total fiction because if you want to build above that code, you now have a vehicle to do that. Never before in the village of Palmetto Bay did we have a method for adding to the code. It was always build the code, and the variance procedure was a hardship code. It's a lot of words to talk about. If anybody's interested, you can call me. In fact, if you want to put my cell phone number up there, please feel free to do that. It's 305-302-3713. You know, feel free to give me a call on that. We can explain that in great detail. But again, I will always discuss these things in public so you hear a consistent message. I don't just take my conversations underground so I can deliver a different message to different people.
You almost wrapped yourself up rather than letting me do it. So I'll jump in here. We have run out of time. There are lots of questions.
You know people here. We can keep going.
We could. A couple of minutes. We're gonna do it. But Palmetto Bay is a wonderful place to live.
And I want to make sure it continues to be that way.
And so there is a 3-horse race for mayor that's coming up. Eugene, Gene, or Flynn is one of those 3 horses. And I'm going to give you 1 minute to do your campaign pitch right to the camera because now's the time.
I don't think you'll find anybody who is more invested, who is one of you. I'm looking forward to speaking before the Palmetto Bay Business Association coming up this week. I am a small business. I am a long-term resident. My kids have gone to the public schools here and on to the public colleges. Um, I love this community. I am in it for the service. I have never profited by this. You look at my social media, you will see that I've always maintained. It's not about, you won't see a politician's social media. You will see a member of the family, a member of the community, family, friends, things from regular activities. I'm a cyclist. I like to garden. I'm very pleased that we have the Palmetto Bay Garden Club here, but it's very important that we continue to work together. The thing that's most important to me is continue the relationship, not just turn your vote over to 5 politicians on the dais. I want you to know when you go to sleep at night that you've got somebody to call that shares your concerns and that will vote to put things on the ballot when they come forward, instead of making the decisions for you and not allowing you to express your opinions when it comes before the ballot. Your taxes, your community, it's all critical to you. Consider me a partner, not somebody who's going to vote on your behalf. We work together.
And on special occasions, he'll come and chase after a cat to bring him back inside.
Oh, tell me that cat's still around.
The cat is still around.
That was an interesting day. So your viewers know your son's support cat, his prize cat with everything that was going on, got loose. I came over. That was a fun time. We even had Craig. I'm going to give Craig a plug. He's a guy that's had surgery, instrumentation at multiple levels. We were basically, how else do you describe it, but cat diving to catch the cat, bring him home. We brought your indoor cat home. And I still remember when we put him in the shower, I guess to calm down there, the evil look that cat gave me. I am never again going to walk in that house where that cat is and turn my back on him.
Well, it was a really good day. And Gene, my neighbor.
Well, wait, no, it wasn't
really
one day. I think we came over
That's
there
right.
in the evening. Yeah, 2 days to catch that cat.
It was a great 2 days of cat catching. And Gene was my neighbor and helped me. So that's the end of the show. Every week we get great people. Gene,
you know what's going to happen now? A cat gets cut in a tree. They're not going to call the fire department.
They're going
to call me. And you know what? I'll be happy to come out there and help you with it. I've done that before. Nothing disturbs me more when somebody gets separated from their pet, or, you know, if it's all about the children, and we want to do that. So,
all right, Gene, running for mayor yet again.
Good memories, man. Let's keep the good memories doing. Let's keep the Palmetto Bay moving forward on a very positive note. A community of involvement, or if it's your choice not to, and you just want to keep up on it, we'll keep you in the loop, and you be able to rest comfortably.
We've taken more minutes than the newspaper is going to allow. Have a great week, everybody.